Hello and welcome back to another interview with author Ash Banks. Ash has written yet another book about neurodivergence on top of all their other books that they've written. And this book is called When the World Hurts Too Much, Identifying and Managing Neurodivergent Stress, Anxiety and Trauma. Just before we start, we haven't decided, like the topics haven't been outlaid, but I would obviously, based on that title, I would just give a content warning. I'm sure there may be things discussed that might be difficult for some people, so just mind yourselves in that. So Ash has written books on, you've written books on neurodivergence before. So just a couple. Why this book? Why this topic? What did you feel that you hadn't covered in your other books that needed to be covered?
You're making it sound like there's like a rational decision making going on in like the last book, which was that monster survey thing. I only wrote because I needed one piece of data and it didn't exist. So I got carried away and it all sort of exploded. And the one before,
this sounds completely off-brand.
And the one before I only wrote because I got really, really, really annoyed with somebody online. And it was just like, I started to write something and it was like I was at 9. It was supposed to be a blog post. And then I was at 9,000 words with like about 80 references. And I was like, yeah, this is not a blog.
Have you explored the possibility that you might have ADHD? Just saying.
No. And he would come. I would be shocked and appalled. How can you say it? Oh, by the way, I'm not speaking to you anymore. I forgot.
Why? What did I do now?
What did you do? You know what you did.
Genuinely have no idea what I did.
So everybody, for the people who weren't present when I was fairly victimized, and it was pretty fair.
Oh yeah, I banned you. Yeah.
What am I banned from?
The Quiet Zone. You're banned from the Quiet Zone at Dublin Pride. Even
so
though you don't live in Ireland and you're not coming to Dublin Pride.
A sea and a whole country between me and the Quiet Zone, and I'm still officially banned.
Well, Dublin's on the coast, in fairness, so only a bit of a country.
Well, no, because but still. Principles. Anyway, I don't understand why, because there is but no. So basically, this book, a friend of mine sent me a tweet, and I got really annoyed, and I started to explain why I was really annoyed at it, and then it sort of exploded, and I was writing a book, and I had no idea. I didn't start it; it just sort of happened, and
It seems that a lot of your writing is driven by angst or annoyance at other people.
Only the non-fiction. Sorry, the fiction is all like stuff. Happy puppies and everything.
Rainbows and lollipops. Yeah.
Yay! So but basically, there is a new concept on it. Well, it's a new term, and of course, it's an autistic term because the autistic community is doing all this splendid work, and the ADHD so we're a bit behind for entirely unsurprising reasons, really. But it's distinct anxiety or autistic distinct anxiety. And it's about basically if you go to your doctor and your doctor decides that you have an anxiety disorder, one of the things they can diagnose you with is generalized anxiety disorder, which is basically you are anxious about everything and nothing. It's more technical than that, but that's what it boils down to. So it's not a specific
it's not a specific anxiety. Yeah,
you're just generally anxious and autistic people have been pointing out that what's actually happening is that autistic people are anxious about specific things that their therapist isn't recognizing because the therapist isn't autistic, so they can't relate to it. So for instance, you might be like, I am extremely anxious about going on planes. I do not have a phobia of flying. I have severe allergic asthma. I have been on a flight and not being able to breathe and ended up sort of breathing through an oxygen mask for the duration of the flight because I couldn't breathe the air and I couldn't open a window, you know what I mean? So obviously I am now, I'm thinking, if I go on a plane, can I breathe? Can I not? I don't know until I'm in it.
It's a rational response to a real thing. Yes. It's not just generalized. Oh, sure, I'm just anxious about this.
It's not any, but that's the first bit. Exactly as I said, it's not generalized. It's very specific. So if you get migraines from bright lights, you will be worried about bright lights. Very rationally so. But and I was like, oh yeah, and that was my friend's point. She was like, this is really, really great because one of our kids has been diagnosed with this generalized anxiety, which just isn't. It's very, very specific. But my point was that a lot of the things that were being mentioned as examples of it are not actually anxiety. They are stressors. They're very, like, my anxiety about flying. I have there's a physical trigger that causes me to stop breathing. It's not like I sit awake at night and think, oh my Lord, what if I have to go on a plane tomorrow? It's just like, if it's a proportional response to a real present concern, that's not anxiety, that's stress. Which might sound just like semantics, but when you look at how you treat the two things, it's where things can come unscrewed very quickly if your therapist doesn't make a distinction or sort of files you in the wrong compartment, then you can end up getting therapy that's basically gaslighting, constantly gaslighting.
That's exactly it, telling you that there's nothing really to be worried about, even though there is. And as you say, we know that stress causes physiological, as you mentioned, physiological differences in your body. So
and that's an absolute killer.
And if you're just treating the surface level of what you're perceiving as not unfounded, but as just an anxiety response.
Well, it's unfounded, really, because that's the thing. In order to diagnose somebody with an anxiety disorder, the anxious feelings should be unfounded, exaggerated, or you're literally staying awake at night for something that isn't going to happen.
Exactly that. And I think, as you said, it's not recognizing that the things that are causing anxiety are a real and actual thing. And I think it ties into that thing. Now, not to speak over you because you're the one that wrote the book, but it bothers me when people are just like, well, anxiety and autism go hand in hand. It's like, no, that's not. Do you know what I mean? We autistic people aren't inherently anxious. Autistic people have been made anxious by their sensory systems, by being constantly placed in environments that are not good for them, and therefore are anxious about going back to those environments because they've had a physiological reaction. When
you're constantly having to face demands that you're not equipped to deal with, or you're not sure that you will be equipped to deal with, that is inherently stressful. And stress / anxiety, I mean, it literally changes the structure of your brain, particularly if you're a child. So if a child is being, they're put against demands that are age inappropriate because of their neurodivergence, or for whatever reason, really, you are fabricating, you're literally molding a brain that later on in life will feel more anxious, will be less able to deal with stress. Because the structure, the size of the amygdala changes to the point that they can do you an MRI scan. Sorry, my dog is playing up. And literally they can do MRI scans on children, because it can be quite hard to actually measure, as it were, anxiety in children. But they can look at a scan and sort of estimate how anxious a child is going to be before even running any tests. But again, is that stress or is that anxiety? Because you can't treat the two as equivalent, and it's very frustrating to me. I mean, I think it's, as a term, the whole idea of distinct anxiety, it's fantastic and it needs to be out there, but it just doesn't need to be misused, because otherwise we are just doing to ourselves what they're doing. They
are doing. Well, the thing is, what I liked, because you very kindly gave me a copy of the book, and I'm only early doors, what I'm really enjoying about it is how comprehensive what you've done is. You've covered so many aspects that, like, as you said, in the community, we're like, oh yeah, we talk about these things, we talk about all these things, and yet outside of our community there seems to be very little understanding. They know these things exist, but they're not tying, they're not it comes back to that whole thing of seeing us not as human, really. You look at any of the things, you're like, that's a distressed human. It doesn't matter what their neurotype is. That's a distressed human.
One of the things that winds me up immensely, bear in mind, I'm not autistic. I have some autistic traits, but I'm not qualified. Was it copyrighted? I don't know what you get. You get a badge. You get
a degree in autism.
But one of the things that winds me up is when they say, oh, like autistic people or neurodivergent people are very resistant to change. And it's like, no, you're making changes. I don't know what impact the changes will have in my life. If instead of going by train somewhere, we go by bus, in a train I can move, in the bus I cannot. Again, bringing back to the asthma thing, if I cannot breathe on a train, there are many compartments, I can move, find a different seat, I'm fine. On the bus, if I can't breathe, what do I do?
This is the thing. These are rational responses that are being treated as
completely
irrational.
But when they discount the stressors, particularly in children, oh, this child is very resistant to last minute changes. It's like, because they don't know what to anticipate and they don't know if they can cope with it. And you are being a prat, so you're clearly not supportive. So is really the issue that the last minute change is like, oh, we can't deal with it? Or is it that you're just not supporting, you're not providing the adequate information and support that would make that change tolerable?
And to be fair, Ash, that's another thing that I really like about the book, as much as I've read so far. I can only see it continuing.
Disappoint you later,
that you're explaining, you're explaining the stressors, you're explaining the things in different situations and scenarios and stuff like that, but you're explaining the why of things, because like children don't have the vocabulary, they don't have the emotional vocabulary, they don't have many adults, let's be honest, but they're not going to be able to explain like you've just explained about, well, if I'm in a bus, I can't move, but if I'm in a train, I can move, blah, blah, blah. And probably couldn't have done that when you were a child.
No,
probably couldn't have explained that's the reason why. Do you know what I mean?
Every example I use is something pretty much that directly affected me or affects me still. So, I'm not, we've done a lot of,
we've done a lot of work kind of looking back and like, oh, that's why, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But what I like about it is that you're covering it's such a broad, like it genuinely is brilliant. And I think it'll really, really help an awful lot of people. But yeah, that part of it, that going, this could be the why. You're not saying this is definitely it. But I think for me, helping caregivers to try and understand how important trying to understand the why is ultimately what will help. It is ultimately what will help most neurodivergent people.
And
it comes back to that concept of your child is struggling. It's not won't, it's can't, it's actually can't. They cannot do this. And
what can you do to facilitate this? Not how do you change the child to fit the system, is what can you take out of the system to help the child? And the thing with stress, I mean, anxiety is what it is. Stress is a cumulative thing. So you can have, and it literally, if you have 75 stressors and they're tiny, might have more of an impact of you than one major one, because it's all, it's literally, it's a measurable thing. There are scales you can measure stress by, but it doesn't exist in medicine. Stress is not, it's a medical concept in as much as prolonged stress causes diseases. But like if you go to the doctor, you're very unlikely to be diagnosed with stress. Because it's not how the system works, which is fine. And I completely forgot where I was going with this. So but with stress, it's like if my coping level is here and my stressors are here, you only need to go this much and I'm back to where I can cope, which is not ideal because it's still way too high, but like tiny little changes. And it's like, give the child, oh my God, can I go off on a completely, it's not completely tangential, pet peeve of the year. I live next to a seaside resort. I'm pointing to it, it's down that way. The number of times I go through the town and I see people with children that are clearly neurodivergent, and the children are going through that, and there is arcades, there are noises, there's crowds. It's not, I mean, I hate going there. And the kids are going through the town, they're getting dragged along or wheeled along, and the kids are like this. It's like parents, ear defenders. They're a thing that exists. You plonk it out. How is this not communicating a need? How is this not communicating a need?
I know, I've seen it myself. And the thing is, it's for me, like talking to people about, like, for me, like you say, I'm like, well, this makes common sense. Your child's covering their ears. It's obviously too loud. Just give them ear defenders.
But it's too loud for me. It's too loud for my dog.
That's exactly it. Oftentimes, I don't think people understand how they've escalated things without, do you know what I mean? And that's why this book is important, because you're explaining, but that's why this book is important, because you're explaining to people, like to a neurodivergent person, to be powerfully honest with you, this is going to be validating, but it's not going to be surprising. To non-neurodivergent people, hopefully it'll explain the why, I think for me, this book, of all your books on neurodivergence, I think this one is the most aimed at non-neurodivergent people. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because I didn't aim it that way necessarily, but I'm glad it does that.
Yeah, I think it's really important for neurodivergent people to read, because it'll be validating and it'll help them, give them the vocabulary and the words and whatever to explain their own selves. But for non-neurodivergent people, I think it'll be really important, because you're explaining, this is maybe what's going on. This is how you can help. And this is how you can prevent escalation to trauma. Do you know what I mean? Like, and to explain, like, I just, of your books, the others are great for other, you know, but of this, I think this is the real one that will actually make a difference to non-neurodivergent parents and stuff like that, to help them understand their child's experience, or anybody in their lives experience, because it's really, no, it's not going to be an easy read.
I wasn't even trying to do that.
It's great. No, it genuinely is. And the thing is that I know you hate when I say this, but it's still got humor in it. It's not like really dry and hard, like, do you know what I mean? It's not what the topics that you're talking about are hard. The topics you're talking about are difficult, but there's enough lightness in it that it won't be completely inaccessible to people, that they might be just overwhelmed.
It is broken up in diddy bits though, so you don't have to like go, oh, this is all the crap of the world that I'm dealing with. You can go, oh, this is a little bit of crap of the world. Sorry, I'm swearing already. Although we're like 10 minutes into it, I'm doing well.
You're doing well. You're just like, so and we're Irish, so you know, we didn't even notice. So
you can sort of take, you don't have to digest all of it in one go, because it's a bit much.
Unless you're ADHD and you're hyper focusing and need to get it done. But
fair enough.
You said you weren't aiming it at non-neurodivergent people. So who were you thinking about when you were writing it?
Literally just us. Because for me, I am older than salt, and I am still occasionally, because I wasn't brought up. I was brought up before neurodivergence was a thing, obviously. Also like ADHD. You weren't autistic unless you were non-speaking, pretty much. If you were a girl child, you weren't anxious, you were shy or good. So because I had selective mutism. Selective situational mutism. I hate selective mutism.
So do I.
And it was all like, oh, she's shy, quiet child. I was like,
so it's exactly the same. And it was like,
no, I'm literally paralyzed. I can't, which I think is also why my ADHD did not get picked up. And because I'm
exactly the same. My ADHD got masked by my autistic traits when I was young, and then as I got older, my autistic traits got masked by my ADHD.
So the dog knows that when I'm doing something with my mouth, I can't tell her off if I'm on the phone or on a call. So she does things she shouldn't.
She's pulled this trick before during interviews. I've seen this behavior, hasn't she?
Yeah, she's not silly. I mean, she's devious, but anyway, there is a real dog. I'm not making it up. Look.
We can see her nose.
Yeah. So but I wasn't. I never considered it. But no, they would be, because the original book I wanted to write before I wrote the last one was one about how teaching instructors how to accommodate is the wrong word, but how to be more neurodivergent inclusive in training session, because I'm finding a lot of people that genuinely they want to help students, but they have absolutely no idea how. And there is very much a culture in certain fields that if you say, I can't do this, you either need sort of bolstering up, because it's like, oh, you're insecure and we need to convince you that, oh my God, your bracelets. Sorry, but you just...
Oh, sorry, I stuck my finger.
Things.
Very shiny, isn't it?
Yeah, very shiny. Stop that.
Sorry.
What's going to happen.
Very distracting, sorry.
So it's either like, you're insecure and we need to sort of encourage you to break through your whatever blah 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 mental thingies, and sometimes you just genuinely can't do something, or you are just making a fuss, you're trying to take center stage, which is quite often like not really the issue. And it's like these abilities are real, but whether something, or limitations are real. And it's like, believe your students. It doesn't mean if somebody says they can't do something, accept that it's true at this point in life for whatever reason, and then act accordingly. But don't sort of engineer this. So that was the book I was trying to write before, but maybe I've accidentally written it now and it doesn't matter anymore. Yay! But I'm still finding out things like sometimes I'll fail to do something, or I'll mess something up, or I'll struggle with something, and I forget that there is a reason for it. Like I was trying to learn the runes and I was finding it really, really difficult. I'm dyslexic. It sticks facing different ways. I was like, it took me about 10 years to learn how to write the number 3, and I still get it wrong about 1 time in 10. And I'm going, why am I finding it so hard? There must be something defective about me that I can't learn which way the stick is right. It's like, and I forget because I'm not.
You do. Like I'm like, why? Like I'm dyscalculate. And one of the things I really struggle with is schedules and timetables and stuff like that.
They're also hell.
So how many times do I have to arrive at the train station or the bus station at the time when it's meant to be in my destination? Before I go, I should probably check with somebody else what time this is at.
See, I do the opposite, because I'm like, if I have to be somewhere at 2:45, I'll be there at 2:45, and then be going, can I go there? Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, that's
otherwise
I will.
Are
you the perpetually late ADHD or you're the perpetually early? I'm a perpetually early ADHD.
I'm a perpetually early, yeah. So.
And then you have to get around outside because they're looking at the window going, what is that person doing outside? Because you can't go in because they're too early.
I've had situations where I've gone to people's birthday parties and sort of like lurked outside for like an hour and a half. It was too early to go in.
Weird, creepy without meaning.
I'm gonna get
job interviews and had to be like, oh no, they're going to see me now while I'm standing outside.
I went to a job interview a day early.
Yep,
didn't get that job. Did not get that job.
I am shocked. Yeah.
Anyway. Yes. It's funny that we were like, for our viewers who are not aware, we were talking about us not having or having a loose relationship with time. Is that a fair enough way of describing it? Fair. And our host just put up a banner saying you're 20 minutes. Shut up. So one thing so I just thought it was an interesting happenstance.
Yeah, I'll be giving away I need to outsource my timekeeping to other people.
I want our host to just organize my life, but they said no, which is very sad.
I've said it before on Neuro Pride things. The ratio is 3 autistic ADHDers or just ADHDers to 1 pure autistic, and that's how you get stuff done.
Yes,
because if it was just ADHDers, it'd be all the ideas and none of the follow through.
Or unless hyper focus, and then you get pop book.
Well, yeah, there is that. So, in terms of how did you because as I said, you've covered so many topics and so many, how I'm really struggling to think what I was going to say. But in terms of trauma, so the book says stress and anxiety, and we've talked about stress and anxiety. Where does the trauma come in? I know where it comes in, but I'm just wondering.
It's pretty much impossible to grow up chronically stressed and not have trauma as a result. Basically, it's the bottom line. And also, this is going to sound very unpleasant and some people don't like to hear it, but if your parents are struggling, you don't have to be abused to be traumatized by your parents. If your parent has severe anxiety, any mental health issue, they just struggle to cope, that's going to have an impact because your sense of security and safety.
It's not intentional and it's not anybody's fault. It's just
So I really like there is a term, I think it's mostly an American term, that talk about adverse childhood experiences, not experiences at all.
It actually is the University of Liverpool have done a lot of research into it. Yeah, so it's not an American term. It's actually
I don't see it used here though. They never seem to use it.
Yeah, no, I I know because the person who did the research came and did the talk. I work in domestic
Oh,
abuse
cool.
services, so as an early childhood educator, so it will be an area that I'm very interested in.
Say thank you for, seriously, say thank you, because it's just
Yeah.
such a good concept.
This researcher, she do you know, because of scale, she is a person who has a very high ACEs, what they call them,
Yeah.
or adverse childhood experiences. So she has a very high, so she's lived experience, which is why she went into this area and why she's interested in it and stuff like that. Relatively young as well, she is, but yes, that's the thing. It's like, it's obviously people know about the big things like abuse and all that kind of stuff, and experience of illness and loss and stuff like that. But people don't realize, as you say, the cumulative effect.
Yeah.
That we
and
all
also,
have ACEs. We all have ACEs. And
it's
it's
just so
about
many.
building them up. Yeah. That's basically the idea of it. The concept is that we all have these things. And once it reaches a critical threshold, our ability to cope with it
is
impacted.
But also, I like the idea of ACEs, because a lot of people, I mean, I kind of struggle sometimes using the word trauma in certain contexts, because it sort of feels like I'm misappropriating a term that's too big for what I went through. Because and also a lot of definitely when I started out, you know, I'm looking years and years ago, I would have never said, oh, you know, my family was abusive or my family traumatized me, because it was definitely not intentional. I think it wasn't intentional, you know. And
our
I think a lot of
would have
people,
been,
I think a lot of people definitely associate abuse and neglect with like intent, like I want to abuse you, I want to neglect you, when it's like literally, if I haven't got the spoons to take care of myself and I have a dependent, that dependent is going to struggle. Like whichever way you slice it. So switching over to thinking about ACEs, I think can open, definitely for me, it helped me look at things in a more objective fashion, because I didn't have to blame anybody. You can look at the circumstances.
Exactly. And it's the thing for me about ACEs as well, is that two siblings could experience a similar upbringing, but it's individualized, and it's focused on everybody's individual, like everything, like all of this should be. Like if we go from, as you know, in terms of diagnosis and all that kind of stuff, if we change the way we look at things to individualized support, assessment of needs. What does this individual need, and how are things impacting them? Because no two people are going to experience the exact same thing.
I mean, one of the things that winds me up, both about the autistic sort of diagnostic umbrella and the ADHD diagnostic umbrella. I mean, ADHD is split in three-ish, and they can present very differently. And mine, I mean, I score high in all of the thingies, but I do present very differently in different situations. So you know, it's which is interesting that way. But like for instance, I know if I went for an assessment of autism, I wouldn't pass because I don't meet enough of the criteria. But the criteria I do meet, they are still needs. Like you know, I still have those issues that I have to deal with. So why is it that unless you can meet enough, and then we give you this one label that covers a multitude of sins, really? Because like you could have 3 autistic people with completely different support needs.
Well, you do in my family. I have really big, like I've come from a very neurodivergent family, and we all, even with the same diagnosis, are completely different needs.
And it shouldn't be. I don't think it should be that you look at somebody's like, well, it says here. What does it say on the label? Autistic, blah blah. Oh, well, then they need. No, it doesn't work.
It just doesn't. And we know as a community where things need to go. The difficulty is dragging the other people with us, the they you mentioned earlier on, that we're not saying people don't need support. What we're saying is
it should
people need the support that works for them. Do you know what I mean? Not a one size fits all. You're autistic, so therefore you need this. Or you're ADHD, therefore you need this. So, and I think actually bringing it back to the book, because I'm so good at this, interviewing nonsense. I think that's what's really coming out, that it is about neurodivergence. It's about having a brain that differs, not what particular way it differs, but having a brain that differs, and here are things that can impact
Yeah.
a broad spectrum of things that can impact on people. So people can look at it and go, well, I'm not bothered by that, or my child or the person I care for, that doesn't really affect them, but actually this probably would. Like the way you've broken it down into environmental stressors, performance stressors, medical and physiological stressors, breaking it down to those subheadings of these are different things. And some of the stuff people might not consider or mightn't have thought about as being a stressor. And I think that's really important as well in terms of the book, of have a think about these. You're not being prescriptive. You're not saying if your child is autistic, these are the things that stress them.
Because I hate that. I think it should be like a buffet thing where you go and pick, and also like from day to day, at least for me, I mean, I started writing a book where I was severely stressed. I'm still, circumstances are similar now. They haven't, like literally there's stuff going on in my life. So it was very good for me to go back through all the, how to deal with anxiety and how to relax and also, because I don't do it. I forget. I know all the stuff is in there, but I don't do anything about it.
You might do it for 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Yeah.
There you go.
And then it starts working and you go, wait, I'm going to stop now. So it was good for me in that sense. But I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, we're doing so well here. I'm off my meds. Can you tell?
No, Jesus, no.
I forgot what I was going to say. Somebody tell me this is terrible. Say something else.
You're going to say
really quickly.
Change the topic. Okay. So yeah, talking about things that can help. You also cover that.
So like from a day to day, like when I was extremely stressed, is it misophonia or misophonia? I say misophonia, but I've heard it said both ways.
I've heard misophonia and I've heard I think it's like alexithymia
mouth
and
noise,
alexithymia.
me won't kill. That thing. It's if I am stressed, it's like way up there. Like
this is the thing.
And everything like or stress or anxious, so it's not like you're not like a constant. We are organisms. We are constantly responding to our environment, and it's like if I'm dealing with 300 things today, that 301st is gonna get dropped.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I think again, it's coming back to that thing of neurodivergent people are humans having.
What?
Human
wait, no. I have read research that
it's
says
controversial.
quite clearly that neurodivergent people are not humans, that you have to put the human inside.
Well, obviously that we have no empathy and no sense of humor, and obviously don't understand sarcasm.
Absolutely not.
No, couldn't even begin to understand sarcasm.
Also, I mean, we have really bad communication.
They say sarcasm.
We can hardly talk. No. Ever.
Barely. Can't socialize. So clearly we're not neurodivergent. So yeah, no, I think that's for me is another important part. You don't just go, here's all the stressors and bye, see you later. Best of luck on all your endeavors and sort that out. I think that the
granularity.
Well, fair enough. Granularity.
I don't know. I picked the word. I don't know what you're saying. I'm not actually psychic. Sorry. Not yet.
No. I was talking about this. So what? Now what? What? Yeah. So what? Now what? I was trying to think of the word mechanism or whatever.
Oh well, I was way off the mark.
Yeah, no, but the thing, granularity. Turns out it wasn't granularity, but that what you employed in the book of the what. Okay, so what? Why am I talking about this? Why is it important? Now what? That part, like that, the continuity through the book of. This is what we're talking about. This might be what's going on. Okay, if it is that, so what?
Do something about it.
Why is it important? Yeah. Now what? And that for me is really important, what you've done there of kind of just, because a lot of times people talk about these things and mightn't necessarily understand the importance of the now what.
Because it's quite the saying, oh, my autistic child is really stressed. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, so what? Now what? Yeah. Exactly.
It's not. You don't just take it. If somebody says, "Oh, you've got really bad feet," or you got whatever, you got a sore thumb, you do take action. You don't just take it as this is how it's going to be. And it's quite depressing, like particularly talking to neurotypical parents of neurodivergent children. When to me, I find it very upsetting when they either don't see the children as progressing at all because they're not progressing in a neurotypical fashion. So my child cannot communicate because they cannot talk. And it's like, but have you given them different communication device? No, they just cannot talk, so they cannot communicate. It's like the two things are not related, mate. You know, it's just, that's not how it works. Or that, you know, constantly facing them with demands that are not appropriate for where they are, you know, meet them where they're at. So that's either exactly. It's like, you know, if you can't do anything, you can't do nothing, or you should be doing everything anyway. And it's just like, man, it's got to be tailored. It's got to be tailored, you know. It's like, and it wouldn't just be good for us, it'd be good for everybody. Think like if the education system was geared up at looking at each child as an individual and saying, what do you need today to maximize what you're going to achieve?
But Ash, they wouldn't be good little capitalists if you individualize things.
Really good. Oh no, this is dangerous territory. Dangerous territory.
And we'll burn it all to the ground. That's it. Just I'll skip to the end.
Oh, speaking of capitalism. Wait, speaking of capitalism. So the book is going to be free for 5 days to celebrate Neuro Pride, or maybe 4, depends. I'll do what I can. So grab it when it's free, so you don't have to give me or Amazon any monies, please, because I don't want your monies. I want you to make the world a better place for me, which would actually benefit me more. And
Ash, like seriously, it's really amazing that you do that for Neuro Pride every year, and we really appreciate it. Really appreciate you just writing these books. Like, you don't even want to write these books, you're just writing them so Neuro Pride can have a free book, and I do genuinely.
I mean, it's clearly like something that I do without any sort of, there's no willpower or it's not work. It's just my brain just extrudes books once a year, apparently.
Yeah, just
happens.
Just putting them out. Ash, I'm going to call a halt there because we are over time, even though we promised we wouldn't be. Only a teeny amount. But again, we will share the details of the book when it's out. We will share the details of when it's available during the Neuro Pride Festival, which is the 3rd to the 8th of August. And I cannot overemphasize how good this book is and how important it is for, especially for, as I said, parents and caregivers of neurodivergent people.
Does that mean that am I unbanned from the quiet zone? Because
no, absolutely not. No. Okay, you're unbanned if you could promise to come to the quiet zone and not be noisy. I rest my case, Your Honor. Yes. So again, thank you so much for all the support. Thank you so much for agreeing to this interview. And yes, I would just like to say thank you for tolerating my terrible interviewing skills. So
thank you.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.